Good evening, folks. Welcome to Google Cloud's Data Leaders Exchange in association with Analytics India magazine. My name is Kunal Mathuria, and I lead data and AI sales for Google Cloud India. Today, we are going to talk to Raja Sekhar Kommu, the co-founder and chief technology officer of Karkinos Healthcare. We're going to talk about data-driven transformation and how he is helping his company, drive more data-driven decisions. Raja is an entrepreneur with over 25 years of experience and has created blueprints for Karkinos technology platform that can support population scale distributed cancer network in wide variety of edge cases. So today's discussion will be about how Karkinos harnesses the power of data to offer better healthcare solutions to its stakeholders across the life cycle and deliver meaningful outcomes. Right? Welcome, Raja, to the Fireside Chat.
Thanks, Kunal. Thanks a lot. Appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts on this topic.
Thanks for talking to us today, Raj. Let me start, by asking you about Karkinos and Karkinos' mission and how Karkinos is using technology to achieve it. I think that would be a good segue to kind of get into a more deeper discussion today.
Thanks, Kunal. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you guys taking time to talk to me on this. Just to give a quick intro about Karkinos, we are essentially a technology-led, purpose-driven oncology platform. Yeah, I know it's a mouthful, but uh, technology is at the heart of what we are actually trying to do, at the forefront of what we try to do. The mission of Karkinos essentially is reducing the burden of cancer on the country and beyond. So what do we mean by burden of cancer? In the country today, as per global estimates, WHO estimates, 1 in 8 people in the country, in India, are going to have a brush with cancer in some or the other form. Just 2 years earlier, it was like 1 in 10. So the rate at which the disease is kind of spreading in the population for various reasons is at alarming pace. That's what we say. And the infrastructure obviously cannot keep pace with the healthcare infra that is there in the country. Even the primary healthcare is a kind of a challenge in the country. So cancer care is something which is a distant dream for most. And that is where we come into picture, essentially. We believe strongly that the physical infrastructure or building up new cancer centers across the country is definitely not a solution that will take uh, hundreds of years, if not more, basically to actually keep up the pace. So technology is the only way where you actually have a reasonably hopeful solution to solve the problem between the supply and the demand as far as cancer care is concerned. So that is the genesis of why we started. What is exactly the problem? Means like 1 in 8 means what exactly is the reason that it is happening? One, in the country, around 70% of the common cancers that we take get presented to the doctor. But the first time the doctor or the clinician sees these patients, he is in stage 3 or stage 4. Cancer, for those who are not aware, it is graded in stages, stage 1 to stage 4. Basically, stage 3 and stage 4 are relatively advanced stages. And once somebody reaches stage 3 or stage 4, the outcome for the patient is not so great. Even the clinicians cannot really help. Basically, they can only care for the patient. The cure is kind of difficult. They extend the lifespan by using whatever means and techniques that they have. But if the same set of patients, if they get presented to the clinician in stage 1 or earlier, the survival outcomes kind of significantly improve, means up to 90-95%. That's what the research says. So it's more than a medical problem. Means if you look at it, the doctors are clearly saying, if you come early to us, we can solve the problem for you. So it's the solution is there in medicine, but the problem becomes basically, one is awareness. Why is that the patient coming so late to a hospital? It's like stage 3 or stage 4. The awareness in the general population about cancer early detection or screening is very low. Not just in the general population, but also in the clinician community. Very interestingly, because cancer is a super specialty. It is treated as super specialty in most of the medical education, and hence not many people are actually aware of how to deal with it. And even educated means all of us, for example, how many of us go for a cancer screening? Means we all go for cardiac screening, sugar, diabetes, hypertension related aspects, but even in the most educated, they really do not know that there are options available for early detection and screening for cancer. So that is where significant information asymmetry is there. And the number two is in terms of accessibility. Let us say, even if I'm aware there is a ulcer in my mouth, it is not healing. So I go to a dentist, and the dentist is smart enough to say that, okay, this might be something related to oral cancer. Why don't you get it checked? That is where the ball drops. Means like, and then it comes back to the actual individual. What should I do? It is like a panic mode, or a fight or flight syndrome kicks in. It starts in. So at that point in time, if I'm a tech savvy guy, means like I start googling, and that is obviously means the first option that I do. What is all this about? Means is the doctor doing it? If not, if I'm not tech savvy, I will try to reach out to some relative or someone in my network, distant network, whom I possibly know that they had some brush with cancer in their circles, and then want to find out more about that. For the patient, there is no difference between where the cancer is, whether it is oral cancer or a lung cancer or cervical cancer or some other cancer. Cancer is cancer. Means like, whereas within the disease, these are all very, very different aspects. The way you treat a oral cancer versus possibly a cervical cancer is very, very different. But this knowledge is not there in general population, as I told. And where do I go? When I say accessibility, where do I go next? Like, what are my next steps as a patient or as a potential patient? I kind of have to do a lot of research to figure out where I have to go. And even if I know where to go, it is not near my home. It is not like a dental clinic. I can walk in and then get some procedure, small procedure done, or eye clinic or in a cancer clinic is not everywhere. Means like most of the cancer clinics are super specialty hospitals, or very, very loaded. Basically, the patient load on them is very high for various reasons. So if I'm coming from a second tier or a third tier town or a city, means it's almost impossible. Basically, there is nothing available within the city or the town. I have to travel to the nearest large town or large city, and it is a double whammy. First, either I have to take leave or stop my business, whatever I am doing. Not only me, my kin, my relative, somebody has to accompany me along with it. And I don't know when I'm going to see the doctor actually, because the load is high. I don't know anybody in the town. I have to lodging, boarding, the out-of-pocket expenses. They almost cover the 70%, which is not covered by any insurance. Means as it is in the country, we are an underinsured country. So it's like you are getting into a hellhole, means literally, and that actually is a problem. So the awareness and the accessibility are the two major reasons, and these two have a direct impact on when the patient is actually coming to the clinician for the first time. Uh, some of the studies, means it is not, I don't have a proof of where I saw it, but uh, I understand that with some of the people, means once they kind of the first symptom of potential cancer and the first treatment when they get it, the gap is almost 9 months. It's a large gap, means for people to kind of face. So hence, affordability is kind of messed up. Means like when I talk about, because you're coming in late stage, stage 3 or stage 4, the treatment costs, the diagnostic costs associated with it kind of balloon a lot. And in addition to that, the out-of-pocket expenses that I was talking, the clinical expenses and the non-medical expenses, both kind of come into play. In addition to that, the lack of income, or you're already on leave, or your business is kind of you have to move away from your day-to-day work. That kind of creates a lot of impact, and hence all these three: affordability, accessibility, and awareness kind of are the problems that we are trying to solve with help of technology. And yeah.
So that's indeed a very noble and lofty mission for Karkinos. I mean, you mentioned all the business challenges in terms of information asymmetry, not being able to kind of deliver cancer care in the physical world, given the size of our population, the rate at which the disease is spreading or being detected. Um, you know, just to build on that, you were mentioning before I interjected, technology is really helping you trying to overcome some of these challenges. So I'd love to know more about what are some of the technology challenges, especially around data, that you face, and how are you addressing those? Uh,
Yeah, sure. So, as I was telling, means technology is the key enabler for us to actually go after this mission. Basically, the how are we actually trying to solve this? What we are essentially trying to do is integrate a fragmented care. Means today, if somebody is a cancer patient, means the patient actually runs from one care provider to another care provider, because cancer is a kind of a long-term disease, if I may say, and also a multidisciplinary disease. It involves a lot of players to actually offer a care to the patient. Means there can be a radiotherapist, there can be a surgeon, there can be a chemotherapy. Means each one happens at different places, and the patient literally jumps from one place to another place, and it starts all over at every care provider. Basically, means everywhere they have to go and explain the entire history, and again it gets started, and these are all very fragmented and siloed, and hence there is a challenge for the patient in terms of they already are under stress and trauma related to this. And the technology that we are actually trying to do, what we call as Karkinos platform. The Karkinos platform is essentially integrating the fragmented care into a single mechanism. We weave in the entire solution. For patient, it is seamless. Essentially, we have all the elements that are present, all the data that comes from various of these touch points, wherever the patient is kind of interacting with a care provider or anyone in the ecosystem for their treatment or care. Each of those points are kind of integrated onto the platform, seamlessly stitching together a patient journey in a longitudinal view for multiple stakeholders, because the patient actually sees an oncologist, a radiologist, radiation oncologist, or what do you say, lab reports that come for these patients, the mammograms, the PET CT scans that they undergo, and last but not least, the molecular biology aspects of it, which is related to the genetic sequencing or path reports, and all these things kind of are, I mean, multitude of data elements are there for every patient. And the data kind of comes in different sizes and formats. Means the lab report is in one format, the ECG reports will be in another. Means just simple examples. Means the path report is very different. Means the digital slides that come out of it, the whole slide images are means like 1 GB. Each slide will be 1 GB in size, basically. And the radiology images and the genome sequencing data that runs into terabytes. Means like multitude forms of data, variety of data in different sizes and shapes for a single patient. Means like that is the crux of it. Means stitching all this together onto a common platform, and then enabling something easy for the patient to understand, for the clinician to understand, and for various other stakeholders who are there in the system, is the essentially the challenge. Because when we talk about it, not all the care providers have a standard way of giving the data back to you the way you want it. So each one has their own formats. While there are initiatives like ABDM and others that are kind of, there are standards available even in the past. ABDM is trying to kind of streamline, but still it's a distant way. I mean, we have a long way to go to actually achieve this. What is the standardization of data across a multitude of providers? So that is essentially what we are attempting. Whatever data we get, we try to ingest the data, create a mechanism to structure it in a way it is more meaningful and queryable, and then put it into what we call as a clinical data repository, which is a structured data, which is open data standards based. And this entire thing for us runs on Google Cloud. So what essentially we tie up this entire data into the system in a seamless way, and then present it back to relevant stakeholders what they have to see in the shape that they are looking for. So
So what you just mentioned sounds so interesting to me, is because you're trying to do this for external customers and at tremendous scale, right? uh, I am sure a lot of our viewers and listeners are grappling with a similar problem around data platforms, but more internally, right? So did you face any challenges, or how are you empowering everyone within your company, uh, while you empower your customers to see this standardized view? uh, Are you doing anything in specific to kind of enable that internally also and get people to look at insights?
Interesting question. It's actually a tough one. Means if you ask me, the reason is we are basically a Karkinos essentially is a mix of multidisciplinary team members. It's like we are not engineers alone, we are not data scientists alone, or AML guys. We are a mix of clinicians. We are a mix of a lot of business folks. Means like who go into the field in terms of partnering with the labs and establishing the what we call as distributed cancer care network, and the regular IT guys means like who are the engineers, and these guys are always there. So it's always a challenge in terms of making them understand how to use data to take their own decisions. So we are internally structured as four different verticals. One is a detection team whose main focus is to basically do early detection within the community. Basically, they go into the larger population, and their objective is to essentially get the detection done at they undergo a risk, they kind of administer a risk assessment questionnaire, and whoever is kind of elevated risk for cancer, they do a screening. So the data that they want essentially internally is that where do I conduct my next screening camp, means which cohort of the which pin code should I actually do it. This is not necessarily for the end patient, but internally they need to take a decision, where do I conduct camps across the country, which is the population segment that I have to go after. Like one interesting case is like from the risk assessments that we have been doing, we kind of so far did like around 320K risk assessments in the population. 320,000 people we are able to kind of reach and do risk assessments. And one of the thing that we have kind of figured out is, in based on the assessments that we have done, there is a segment, if they are already HIV positive, there is a large chance of cervical cancer, basically. So that's a high risk population. So we were able to kind of get that insight with the data that we have collected and started very focused efforts on screening those faster, those population segments. So these sort of insights that we get from the data, we kind of make it enable with the to the business teams internally. Not everybody uses it the way it is expected to be used. That's an ongoing process, but the more cases like the examples that I gave to them basically kind of makes them realize that okay, they need to use data in the right way. So we have there is a BI layer, business intelligence layer, that is built internally, that we made it available to all the stakeholders from the business side, who can dig into the data the way they want, which is kind of separate from the rest of the patient or the related aspect. Just the transactional aspects of it is available for the business to dig into whatever they want to do. That's one example. And similarly, the other vertical, the delivery, which is the DCCN, we call it Distributed Cancer Care Network team. They go and partner with various hospitals, basically, in terms of putting the oncology related knowledge as a part of, as I told, the care is fragmented. So we go to an existing player and enable them to offer oncology services, so that we increase the capacity of the to deliver cancer care. And these delivery teams, they want to understand where they want to, which area they have to partner more. So that kind of, from the detection, they kind of get a input saying that okay, this potential area is having a lot of potential cases that can come up, high risk population is here, so better go out into the field and then figure out which hospitals are there to go and partner. Like, so each one has their own different, the clinicians look at this very very differently. They want to understand, am I giving the treatment right, means like are we actually doing the correct treatment, is there any patient who is available whom I treated in the past. We are still not there yet 100%, but the initial groundwork is kind of being done to help the clinicians in terms of a clinical decision support system as well. So various people, various stakeholders, various solutions, the way they use data is very very different. We are still educating everybody, not everybody is on the same page.
So that's so great to hear. I mean, being a data person, I mean, it's heartening to see how you are enabling data consumption both internally as well as externally. Yeah, just wanted to understand how has Google Cloud and its data services helped you in this mission?
Yeah, so one thing that is definitely there is that we need to remember that Karkinos actually is born in middle of pandemic. Okay. By definition, we never had anything physical at all. Means like when we started, means at least for the first 1 year, every single person is working from their home. There are no physical offices and all that. And Google Cloud and Google Workspaces. Essentially, these are the only two mechanisms that bound the organizations, that created the culture in the organization. That's the way I would say. There was nothing else for us. Means like. From a cloud perspective, again, we use for the platform that I described, the Karkinos platform. On the cloud, we pretty much use multitude of offerings that are there on the cloud, starting from GKE, which is the Kubernetes, the regular Cloud Armor, the hygiene things that we actually do, Cloud Armor and the Cloud Run related aspects. Cloud SQL, again, is significantly used, and all the forms of cloud storage. Basically, we use the file store, the Google Cloud Storage. There are multiple versions of the storage capabilities that we have. Uh, and the other one is also that as a part of the platform, we have a large NLP team, natural language processing tools that we use. We train our NLP models on the Google Cloud platform itself with the compute as well as the storage aspects of it. Last but not the least, the most interesting the thing that we do on GCP is the genomics, the whole genome sequencing analysis, the pipelines that we run, the bioinformatics pipelines that we run on Google Cloud. And the reason why that is critical is the bioinformatics analysis typically is very, very, very compute intensive as well as storage intensive. Basically, it has both the components. And when we are talking about whole genome sequencing doing at 100x depth, it takes kind of significant amount of time for us to do. And as a part of our research, this is a continuous process for us. Means like we do a lot of whole genome sequencing as a part of our efforts, which is on the research side of it. And the ability to kind of the typical cloud capabilities, means in terms of bringing up on-demand services when we want it, and when we don't want it, we want to shut it down. The load is always very kind of, it waxes and wanes quite a bit, and that is where the cloud GCP shines through basically for us. Means like that our ability to run these pipelines at the faster pace at the most optimal cost. Essentially, that's where we kind of our North Star metric obviously is the cost angle of sequencing all these things. So that's something which is where we significantly leverage Google Cloud, and we run like at least 50 to 60 virtual machines for every run, basically. So it's not something which is a trivial thing that we do, and the data run for every run, it runs into terabytes, tens of terabytes. That's where we kind of see a lot of what is that utility for GCP and value what we actually in what we do.
I am so glad Google Cloud's been able to kind of help you on your mission. I don't know, from genome sequencing, NLP processing to running your infrastructure, at optimal costs and value. Uh, you know, uh, Last point that I wanted to touch upon was, if you could give our viewers and listeners some tips on, uh, creating a data driven culture in the organization. I know you mentioned a few. They get some quick wins, get them interested, provide some insights, some more tips around that will be very helpful, because somewhere I believe it becomes a cultural issue more than a technology issue.
It,
uh,
it is definitely a cultural issue. It is as much as cultural issue as technology. That's what I would say, at least. Because see, I'll tell you, in healthcare, especially when we talk about healthcare aspects, the general tendency in healthcare is they are a bit of slow adopters of any technology. It's not just cloud, basically. And we do have cases basically within even our company. Nobody understands cloud. Forget data. Means data is the next level. Means people were looking at where is my server, where do I switch it on, means sort of mode. Basically, means for them to shift in terms of thinking that there is something cloud is possible, because most of the applications in general healthcare are very, very siloed, and the clinicians are used to that. That is kind of given for them. And similarly, even the researchers that who work with us, most of the, especially on the bioinformatics side, they're all used to work in a physical server, local machine where it is sitting right beside their desktop sort of situation. So it takes time for them to adopt to the new way of doing things, using cloud and data driven aspects of it. So even the business leaders, when we talk about, they understand the value of data, but they struggle to use it on a day-to-day basis, basically. So it's always the gut that kind of takes over when instead of taking a data-driven decision. And whenever they try to use the data, the first thing is, I wish I have some more elements in this. Only then it kind of takes up. It's a kind of vicious loop. But from a tips perspective, maybe I would say it's a constant education that we need to do. Whoever is driving the data initiatives within the company for their internal stakeholders, a constant kind of, and then internal marketing is requirements to kind of say that these are the tools that are at your disposal to start doing it. Means quick wins in terms of creating those tools, maybe even with help of the, for example, GCP has this app sheet sort of tools that are available. Means if we can cook up some quick utilities for the people to start using them, those are all no code tools. Anybody can kind of stitch together a quick solution. That's what we do actually. Means I have a few applications which are like that for people to kind of immediately visualize the data that is relevant to them. So that these are things that I think I can suggest at this time.
Raja, it's been absolute pleasure to have spoken to you today. From helping India and the world solve cancer care and cancer cure, to talking about technology challenges and how you're overcoming, to using GCP for NLP, genomics, and infrastructure running, to tips on how do you create a data driven culture within organization. Thank you very much for your time, Raja.
Thank you, Kunal. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for giving the opportunity to speak.